The Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act of 2015 was enacted to curb all forms of violence in public and private life. It goes as deep as protecting women, children and men at their very homes from domestic violence, and as far as protecting citizens from the violence from state actors. Section 44 of the Vapp Act mandates NAPTIP to implement the act. How has the agency fared so far? You are watching NAPTIP on the Move. I am Emmanuel Andukwe. Glad to have you join us. Our package today will showcase the efforts of the agency towards implementing the Vapp Act and also the challenges posed by our culture of silence. Don't go away.
Passed into law in May 2015, the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act was enacted to eliminate all forms of violence and provide maximum protection and effective remedies for victims while ensuring punishment of offenders.
The Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act is domiciled with NAPTIP, just like the Trafficking in Persons Act is domiciled with NAPTIP. So it is our job, it is our responsibility, and we respond to calls of violence just as we respond to calls of trafficking in persons. A lot of people still don't realize that the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act is domiciled with NAPTIP. And so violent acts are reported to other law enforcement agencies. But in the FCT, the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act is being, dealt with by NAPTIP. In other states, it hasn't been domesticated, and so we restricted it to Abuja. Now, what are these violent acts? The violent acts are very wide. Rape, incest, inflicting bodily injury on people, even political violence is violence. Violence against husbands, violence against wives, grievous bodily injury, which can also include circumcision, tribal marks, forced marriages, early marriages. We've had cases of madams at home pouring hot waters on their underage house helps, which is also a crime to start with. Jungle justice is also a violent act against the person because you have no right to carry out jungle justice on anyone. Let the law take its course. If someone is found wanting, the right thing to do is to take the person to the appropriate authorities to deal.
Violence and human trafficking are just like twin brothers, even though they are terror twins. And you find that that's why it makes sense that the National Assembly in its wisdom said NAPTIP should actually administer the Vapp Act. If you look at the domestic level, some people bring house helps. Sometimes their own relatives, sometimes maybe their brothers or sisters, son or daughter, and if you see the way they burn their backs, skin them with the cane and hot iron and all kinds of things. There is no way NAPTIP can fold his hands when this kind of thing is going on, because firm actions will be taken, and then we're going to see a reduction in incidences of domestic violence and the abuse of children.
NAPTIP collaborates with diverse stakeholders to ensure effective implementation of the Vapp Act.
Collaborate practically with all the law enforcement agencies in Nigeria because that's the right thing to do. NAPTIP cannot work alone. We work with Women Affairs, even NGOs, CSOs. ROLAC is our major partner, and we also thank them for the collaboration. Faith-based organizations, we work with everyone. We have to work together. We must collaborate together to succeed.
The Rule of Law and Anti-Corruption Programme implemented by the British Council provides technical assistance and support.
When ROLAC started in 2017, one of the first things we did was to do a progress level assessment on the progress of implementation of the Vapp Act at the FCT where it is operational. The assessment was good, but it pointed us in a number of areas where we needed to engage more. The first area was that awareness levels around the Vapp Act in the FCT were low. So the user level was quite low, with an impact on the level of reporting and also, with an impact on the culture of really, breaking the silence and talking about these things openly. And so we decided to work closely with our partners at NAPTIP, because NAPTIP is named in the Act as the implementing agency or the coordinating agency for the implementation of the Vapp Act. And we have invested in some sensitization, awareness raising programs, some outreach using traditional and social media, and just getting people to know that the law is in place and that they can actually report and expect some help or some succor where they experience violation.
So far, the agency has devised several strategies as part of its efforts to implement the Act.
Awareness, massive awareness, that's the least we can do. We carry out sensitization campaigns, against violence. And of course, when cases are reported to us, we respond immediately. We apprehend the suspects, we prosecute. So these are, acts that NAPTIP, does to make sure that it serves as a deterrence to others and to make people know that we take this very, very seriously.
We have, especially in the area of public enlightenment, we have reached out further afield to young people, young business owners, young people who have a lot of NGOs, and people in IT, people who are in entertainment. So many of them have come on board, supported the agency with so many innovative ideas to reach out, such as the micro-influencers program project. We also have the innovative matches we've done, so many roadworks and so on and so forth that have enabled us to reach out to that very vital group of people whom we expect to also influence their peers.
NAPTIP is currently investigating several cases of violence against persons.
So far, since 2015, we have been able to investigate not less than 210 of such cases, in the agency, and some of these cases will make all effort to investigate them thoroughly. And when we receive such cases, we invite all parties concerned. The suspect is always arrested or apprehended, the victims are rescued, the witness are also invited for questioning.
Much of the work of our Rapid Response Squad has been to rescue people from situations of abuse, especially domestic abuse of children, of women, and sometimes men. But the ones that is most heinous is cases of rape of children, young girls, and all that. So we've had 37 cases have been reported to NAPTIP, and out of that we've had 14 males arrested and 16 females arrested for domestic violence.
However, more convictions would have been secured, but for diverse challenges.
And the challenges are numerous. Some has to do with some of our tradition and culture. Some has to do with issue of stigmatization of the victim involved. Some has to do with some threat, whether direct or subtle threat, against the victims. And some of the challenges too has to do with the technicalities in prosecuting these cases, because people actually don't have patience to stay in a court trial for up to a year, 2 years, or 3. And the court setting too is also not conducive, for children to come and testify in court. Actually, what we normally do is to apply to the judges that to place this kind of cases should be heard in chambers. But it's not all judges that are very much amenable to our application. So the best some of them do is to have the gallery cleared, meaning that those who are not party to the case should be driven out of the court. But then these children are so small. Some of them are as small as 5-year-old. Some of them, are actually exposed to the court environment for the first time in their life. So they are not always very much willing to say anything. They keep quiet, and the judge may not understand why. Then the Evidence Act is also an issue. Why? Because for a child who is 13, 14, 15, they are hardly matured enough to be able to, give evidences, particularly in the cases of rape. And they are looking for evidence, except if a camera was installed before the crime took place. How do you get evidence? So those are the serious challenges.
Most times, people involved in cases of violence avoid going to court.
Those who we have gotten some of the cases against, we arraign them in court for prosecution. But there are other situations where the parties are really not willing to proceed to court. So we have a situation whereby some of these cases have actually been, withdrawn from the agency and said the parties say they don't want to proceed. This sort of cases has to do with issue that happens within family setting, either issue of spousal abandonment or family abandonment, where the father has not been paying the school fees. So in that situation, we don't have much to do, but other than to start counseling the members of the family, the father and the mother, and to see that they can maintain peace in their homes while they, we ensure that the husband or the father, give us another taking, that he will start doing his family responsibilities. Then there are other situations as well where we are really prepared to go to court, but then because of some other extraneous factors, either for the sake of the child involved, because in our agency, the interest of the child is more paramount, for the sake of going to school, in order to also avoid some level of stigma and also to avoid some societal rejection. So when they are not really willing to proceed, we call all parties and we ensure that the violator pays what we call adequate compensation to the victim, which ranges from 2 million down to 500,000 naira, depending on the level of injury or the level of violation of the act.
ROLAC, in collaboration with NAPTIP and other stakeholders, initiated measures to ensure effectiveness of the Vapp Act.
There are other key provisions in the law that we feel as a program supporting progress and implementation should activate. One of such key provisions, particularly at the FCT level, is the establishment of a sexual offenders register and a register for service providers. What this simply means is that anyone who is alleged to have committed a sexual offense in particular should be prosecuted, but it goes beyond prosecution. And that person's name should be entered in a database of some sort, which could be used in future beyond naming and shaming, and also beyond acting as a deterrent for intending offenders. But it also provides us with a database that can be linked broadly with the administration of justice institutions, the police, and when a person is being even considered, for example, for a job, we can run a background check on you and see, so that we don't end up innocently recruiting or hiring or having in our midst people that are serial offenders, and we don't have the information around that.
In the case of rape, NAPTIP ensures that perpetrators are severely punished.
In cases of rape, for NAPTIP and for the Chief Executive of NAPTIP, our Director General, is non-negotiable. So we don't allow such cases, to be compounded. So we proceed to court, and we also encourage the victim to come up to testify. We also advise the victim and the family that when they come to court in this kind of cases, it's not as if, it's a matter that, is for their own interest only. No, it's to also assist other victims in future, other children. Because when these, pedophiles, or violators are really punished, it serves as a deterrent to others, so that these children cannot become endangered species in our society. So they are always ready and willing to, serve as witnesses in our cases. Currently, we have up to 35 cases pending in court, as a result of cases of rape, and we are very much hopeful that we are going to secure conviction.
Capacity building of stakeholders is paramount.
Another area that we noted that was a challenge was that, well, it's a new law in town. There are many people, legal practitioners, social workers, welfare workers, who need to know how to investigate, prosecute cases. The Vapp Act, we felt that there was a capacity gap in that respect, and so we invested in some capacity building, again working closely with our partners, NAPTIP, but also the police, also the FCT Social Development Department. We invested in some training on investigation and prosecution of cases under the Vapp Act, and we came up with the first ever manual for training investigators and prosecutors on the use of the Vapp Act. And as more states are beginning to domesticate or adopt legislation that is similar to the Vapp Act, we are deploying this manual to continue to build capacity and training. We have done similar trainings in Lagos. Lagos has a domestic violence law. We have also done some similar training in Anambra, where, Anambra also has a Vapp Act in place, and so we have invested in training on investigation and prosecution of cases under the Vapp Act.
A service providers register and sexual assault referral center is being established.
Quite a lot of people, civil society organizations, government organizations, talk about, providing services to victims and survivors of violence. And these services vary in terms of scope. Some of the services could be legal in nature. Some of the services are healthcare oriented. Others just simply need psychosocial support, trauma counseling. You're violated, you're traumatized, you don't know where to go, you are ashamed of speaking out. There are agencies that offer these services, and so people need to know where to go when they need a service. And our approach is really to ensure that the services are holistic in nature, it's integrated in nature, because it might be one simple act of sexual violations, but it manifests in different ways, and the responses that are required are multifaceted. So it's an approach that brings together health workers, social workers, justice sector institution workers, security. It all comes together. We have worked closely with stakeholders, including the Social Development Secretariat of the FCT, NAPTIP, as well as the Office of the Vice President, to make sure that we have a response team, sexual and gender-based violence response team in the FCT. Now, closely related to that is that we're working closely with our partners to establish a sexual assault and referral center for the FCT. And we have worked with our partners, NAPTIP and the others, to identify a potential location that Roland will invest in providing equipment and training so that this service can be available for people in the FCT.
NAPTIP and ROLAC have intensified efforts in ensuring that cases of violence against persons are curbed to the barest minimum.
Another thing that we have worked closely with NAPTIP to do is to make sure that, they really enhance and improve on their investigation and prosecution rates. NAPTIP is one of those proactive agencies, at least as one of the government agencies that I have worked with in recent times, that has demonstrated that zeal, that enthusiasm to actually do something about issues of the Vapp. So we're looking at different ways. There's still more room and more for us to do collaboratively. But there is progress, and it's the kind of progress that I personally feel very proud to be associated with.
With all the measures and efforts put in place, state governors are enjoined to adopt the Vapp Act for protection of their indigents.
Only 3 states so far has adopted the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. By virtue of the Nigerian Constitution, this law cannot be made to be a federal law. Unlike the NAPTIP law that is federal, the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act needs to be adopted by various states of the Federation. Only 3 has adopted this law so far. So we have the Lagos State, we have Anambra, and also we have Enugu that has adopted this law. Even Ebonyi recently said they are in the verge of finalizing the adoption of this law. So we have to encourage all state government to ensure that this law is adopted, because it's going to protect their children. Except if you don't have the interest of these children at heart, if you don't want them to go through normal growth in such a way that they are going to be useful to your state in future, because a lot lies in these children. A lot of potentials lie there. So if these children are well properly protected and they are married out, at early stage, and they cannot develop their potentials in such a way that they can help the state, then it will not go for that particular state. So that's why we are appealing to the state government, the governor of all the states that have not adopted it, including the state assembly members, because a lot of rules lies with them. They could go by way of a private member bill to ensure that this law is adopted by the state.
To avoid cases of violence against persons and ensure a violence-free nation, Dame Julie Okadole has a word of advice.
We need to be our neighbor's keeper. I mean, the truth is that love conquers all. If you love your neighbor, you wouldn't even think of hurting or being violent to someone else. It doesn't pay to be violent, because in the act of violence, it can lead to death. And if it leads to death, of course, the law will catch up with you. Please look out for your neighbors. If you know that any violent act is being done to anyone, please report to NAPTIP, and we'll make sure we apprehend the suspects and rescue the victims of violence.
With the collaborations by all stakeholders, constant capacity building, efforts and measures put in place, it is evident that the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act of 2015 is being efficiently and effectively implemented. However, everyone has a role to play in ensuring a violence-free nation. Be your brother's keeper.
Every day, NAPTIP receives reports on all forms of violence against persons, diverse cases of domestic violence, rape, incest, physical abuse, especially child abuse. This has got to stop. NAPTIP is ever ready to ensure justice for victims, but you have to speak up. NAPTIP is working tirelessly to ensure that victims are compensated and offenders severely punished. But we need a lot of support. The Vapp Act can be most effective when each state government takes the required steps to domesticate the act. The victims shun the culture of silence, and neighbors step in to act. We all have a role to play in the effective implementation of the Vapp Act. This is a call to all state governors to waste no further time in securing the life and well-being of their indigents. NAPTIP is working with different stakeholders, including the Rule of Law and Anti-Corruption Program of the British Council. But we need more support to stop violence against persons in Nigeria.
Report all cases of violence against persons to these hotlines: 0703 0000203, 080 2255 627847. NAPTIP, ensuring a human trafficking and violence-free nation.
NAPTIP events is next. Keep watching.
Members of the World Assembly of Youth's African Regional Office, led by its Vice President, Comrade Priya Ketebu Brown, paid a courtesy visit to the Director General of NAPTIP, Dame Julie Okadole, at the agency's headquarters in Abuja. Stating the purpose of their visit, the Vice President of the organization commended the agency for its doggedness in the fight against human trafficking and pledged to join NAPTIP. He then presented an award of excellence to the Director General of NAPTIP. Receiving the comrades and his team, the Director General of NAPTIP, Dame Julie Okadole, thanked the World Assembly of Youths for the recognition and enlightened them on the mandate of the agency and some of its recent achievements. She also called for collaborations in the area of sensitization. Partnership is a pivotal strategy of the agency towards fulfilling its mandate. Staff from the Public Enlightenment Department of NAPTIP visited Blessed and Precious Children Academy, located at the Federal Housing Authority Estate, Lugbe, Abuja, to educate the students on the ills of human trafficking, child abuse, and violence against persons. Alex Adole, a Chief Intelligence Officer, and Cynthia Nnoli, an Assistant Chief Intelligence Officer, gave lectures on internal and external trafficking, child labor, domestic servitude, violence against persons, and encouraged the students to report cases relating to these issues. The sensitization was enlightening, as students sought to gain more knowledge on the prevention of these problems. At the end of the session, affirming statements were made by the students against human trafficking and violence against persons. NAPTIP on the Move is co-sponsored by the Rule of Law and Anti-Corruption Program, ROLAC, funded by the European Union and implemented by the British Council. For more enquiries and support, or to report cases of suspected human trafficking and child abuse, please call NAPTIP hotlines on 0703 0000203 or 0800 2255 627847 or email info@naptip.gov.ng. Visit our website www.naptip.gov.ng. Follow us on our social media platforms at NAPTIP Nigeria and watch our videos on YouTube.
We've come to the end of today's episode. I hope you have learned something new, and I hope you also resolve today to do your part towards implementing the Vapp Act. Act now to save a life. I am Emmanuel Andukwe. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.